Joining me, of course, the Honorable Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources, Honorable Rohi John Manjang is with me on the platform. Also on my right, of course, is Honorable Lamin Queen Jame, is the Minister of Information. But of course, as the saying goes, I wouldn't break the protocol, so I would ladies first and I will allow the Honorable Ministers to extend her greetings to our viewers before we get into the discussions. Honorable, good evening and thank you very much for joining us.
Mr. Kanye, it's my pleasure. I'm happy to be here today to speak with the public.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And on my right also is the Honorable Minister of Information, Honorable Lamin Queen Jame. Good evening and thank you very much for joining us. I will allow you to extend your greetings to our viewers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kante. And to the viewers, wherever one may be, I salute you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It is my pleasure to be on the platform today to discuss important state matters.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And of course, like you heard from them, we are going to discuss some very pertinent or burning issue that, of course, interests many Gambians as we speak. It's more than a week since the flooding or the natural disaster occurred in the country. And as you can see on the background, there are a lot of families and communities were affected. We are going to discuss on the, its impact and some of the responses that have been done by the government so far. Equally, we would be, of course, getting into the local language later on. So ko defee rek mbokk yi ñu ngi leen di nuyu beneen yoon fii ci Africa TV ñu am mbégte bu baax a baax dellusiwaat ci beneen édition waxtaan fii ci kër gi tey nag kon ni ngeen ko gisee ci jotaay bi usually dañ leen di indil NEA hour fii ci kër gi ngeen gis waxtaan bi nu moo tëddee tey nag dafa xala uute dafa am luñ ci yokk ci waxtaan bi le ñu ànd ci ak ñaari ministre gis ngeen leen nuyoo nañ Minister of Information ak Minister of Environment, Climate Change ak National Resources ñoom lay àndal ci jotaay bi li ko waral nag mooy comme ni ngeen ko xamee mbënd mi nga xamante ne xew na ci réew mi waral yàqu-yàqu yu bari am ci réew mi ba tax jamono ji ñu bari dëkkatuñ seen ay kër loolu war na tey ñu war fee waxtaan ak ñoom ñu xam yan jéego la nguur gi jël ak fan la yëf yi toll su ko defee waxtaan bi loolu moo ko waral ci jotaay bi incha allah ñu gërëm leen sant leen bu baax fi ngeen mënta nekk di ànd ak ñun ci jotaay bi. To start with, I would start with you, Minister, with information. Of course, like I say, we'll get into local languages later on. Honorable Minister, let's start quickly on the recent development of since this national disaster occurred in the country. It's more than a week now. Let's start in the capital. Of course, we understand the destruction happened in different parts of the country, but the capital itself, Banjul, was heavily affected, and the president was once again out in some of the affected areas yesterday. Can you bring us up to speed what transpired yesterday when the president was out there to visit some of the areas, and eventually we saw two machines that were deployed to start pulling out the water, some of the affected areas?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kante. To start with, I think we'll go a little back.
Yeah, okay.
Beyond probably to yesterday.
Yeah.
Generally, when disasters occur,
yeah,
interventions go in different stages. The first stage is to see what the actual damage had been. In order to, one, see the effects of the damage on the population. In the course of that, you show solidarity with the victims. And by doing that, you also try to build their confidence, to let them understand and appreciate the reality that they are not alone in it. Even though physically they may be the ones affected, but morally, socially, the community is with them, and more importantly, government is with them. So that was the first stage, in which the government of the Gambia saw a lot of concern. Initially, a visit was done by His Excellency the Vice President.
Yeah.
But given the seriousness, the magnitude of the disaster, the next day, the President, His Excellency President Adama Barrow, also felt that it would only be proper that himself go into the field to see the extent of the damage.
Yeah, a day after the vice president went out.
A day after the vice president went out.
Yeah.
Ordinarily, we may understand in our local language the concept that when somebody is found on the farm with greetings, the greeting does not necessarily extract the burden from him, but it relieves him to a large extent.
Certainly.
So that was one more reason why the government took it that way.
But Honorable Minister, before you go further, what would you say to those that think there wasn't much different that the vice president went out and the next day you have the president also going out, apparently without going with something to the victims to support them in those trying times?
Yes, there is a lot of difference in that. The difference may not be felt by somebody who is not a victim. But those who are victims really feel that there is a lot to pay. The president's going had helped a lot by rebuilding their confidence, by removing the stress, some of the stress from them. Okay? It was also important from a planning point that after all the visits were done, better relief plans can be made, as well as intermediate and long-term resettlement plan packages. Okay. So that as soon as this was done, the third day, from the second day, the third day, the Office of the Vice President called nationwide stakeholders meeting in which the government of the Gambia was significantly represented, of course, taking the lead, and invited also were traditional development partners, both in the international and at the local level.
Yeah. If I can interject on that also, such a meeting, don't you think it's somehow late? It should have been much earlier than the time it has been called by the vice president.
What do you mean late?
The stakeholders meeting that he have called.
It was the third day,
yes,
I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't think it was really late on the third day. It wasn't late because the facts, the fundamental facts were already seen and felt in the field with the visit of the vice president and also that of the president.
Okay.
So meeting on the third day was not late at all in my view.
Okay.
It wasn't late and the facts were already gathered. So that when the stakeholders meeting was called, almost all the actors were there. Okay. Government agencies, development agencies, NGOs, yes, non-governmental organizations in their numbers. Okay. And our traditional partners in the international community were all, in attendance. Okay. There was important discussions that were done, and a strategy for the short term was laid. And the strategy in the short term was to prepare a relief package for the victims. Okay. All right? So, so far, let me... Because, yes.
Yeah, for now.
I don't have to say it
absolutely.
all. Yes.
I would come back to you because, of course, we would know at what level is the relief package and what is also entailing that. Honorable Minister, of course, we talk about climate change or environment. In this case, many will relate disaster and climate change effects. What can you tell us about that? We understand you yourself you're a victim, but basically, what can you tell the Gambian people, on the causes example of the disaster in relation to climate change?
Thank you, Mr. Balde, once again, and thank you, Honorable Minister, for stressing out government's position in these dear need moments. I just want to elaborate on the need to be having regular meetings when it comes to disasters. Yeah. It was important that the Vice President called on that meeting. And I just want to extend to say that that was not the first meeting we had. Okay. Before even the Vice President calls that meeting, we had a first meeting with the President a day before. That was the day when the VP visited and then briefed the President, and also ministries also briefed him. Before he even goes back to the field, he already made his decision. And he didn't go with rice or whatsoever to the field. Yeah. But he has already given the instruction that we engage to make sure that the collections and then things are put on the table to support as a primary level. And that was the very day that we started doing the needful, because government it's not a matter of going to pick money from your wallet and then taking it out. There are processes, but of course we knew that when emergency comes, you have to expedite it. That was done before even he embarked on that field visit. But the field visit was also very important to make sure that at least he has a first-hand information. It's good that you're informed, and then you still believe and take actions. But if you see it, it touches your heart much deeper, and then your the actions are going to be more realistic in nature, that whatever you command or you give in, you already have a first-hand side of everything. Thank you to the President, thank you to the Vice President for not only allowing us to go, but also to go with us to see these things for yourself. I want to tell the Gambia that we are not alone in this. We are still recording some countries that have experienced even worse case scenarios. The US is a country of its own. Senegal here, our own neighbors, and you count them. This is the effect of climate change. I was listening to somebody who was saying that if you do not respect your climate or your environment will demand its right. And this is where we are now. About some 50 years ago, the world, especially the Gambia, we were experiencing drought. That has maybe taken us off our planning, to the extent we completely thought that the entire Gambia is a dry land, not knowing that we have some wet lands that are not suitable for human habitat. So that being the case, the demand for land escalated, and people migrated almost the Nyominkas. Everybody is in the combos now, creating the need for people settling everywhere. And that has also given us the problem that some of the problems that we are all facing now. What I want us to know is, it doesn't mean that the Gambia is not aware of the coming of these rains, but these are just forecasts that we are done. And if people are saying we did not plan because we know that this year is going to rain, then it's just going to be suitable to say that the entire world did not plan.
Yeah, probably people are saying Gambia did not plan because disasters is happening year in, year out. We face such kind of challenges in this country. Don't you think that might be the main reason why some people may think the government is not taking this matter as serious as it should?
This is why I said then, meaning that the whole world did not plan. Because I just said that we are not alone in this. A country as big as the United States of America is also affected. So these are things that nobody foresee such kinds of disasters coming. Of course, we know that. That's why we have contingency plans for emergency situations like this. But the nature of this, you can read from the experts saying that the Saturday rains that came was equivalent to almost more than 200 millimeter. So which usually in a month, sometimes we even receive this kind of amount of rain. So that amount of rain just to pour down one night, tell me which of our, especially when we are already exposed to congestions, when it comes to people blocking the roads and other things, whether the effect will not be this huge. It's unfortunate. We're not trying to shift the blame. As government, we are ready to take the lead. We are ready to make sure that at least we have a short-term solution, a medium-term solution, and a long-term solution. This we will agree. And we want everybody to be on board. And that is not going to rule out to say that next year, we don't pray for it. We might not be hit even harder, or some part of the world will be hit much harder. This is not only the Gambia. Maybe this time around we are receiving, but even last year, we had a very heavy windstorm. Do we say that we did not plan for the windstorm as well? This is climate change. So these are things that come by nature. It's by default of our own activity. We don't have, all the trees have been cut by the Fuller family, and your people have cut all the trees and either use them for other things. Yeah, so, and we're not planning back.
All right.
Yes. Just to add a little on what the Honorable Minister has said, that the Gambia is not alone in it.
Yeah.
In the United Arab Emirates, the disaster there is more serious, with deaths by far multiplying numbers in the Gambia. And every year, every area has forms of disasters that are peculiar to them. For example, in 2013, I went on a study tour in Indonesia, Philippines, and Bangladesh.
Yes.
In Philippines at Yogyakarta, they told us about the volcanic eruption that had happened. With the volcanic lava traveling at the speed of 60 kilometers per hour. You know that is serious.
Yeah, absolutely serious. Indeed.
And when the people debate this, they show you that there was over intrusion on the mountain, that the people had settled until they settled where nobody should settle. So
in our context, whose responsibility is to make sure that people settle where they're supposed to be and not to settle where they should not? Because I mean, apparently now people are saying, I mean, because there should be somebody responsible, you know, in certain cases. Because of course it might happen in other countries, but in our own context, what is the government doing or have done to make sure that, you know, when disasters occur, it could be the effects or the damages could be mitigated? Because it's hard to believe that the government is doing what it should, and year in, year out, of course, we are facing such kind of a scenario, situation, and people are suffering. And you know, the only thing that people will say that the government would, through the NDMA, would give out relief support, rice, oil, and here, and that should be it. Until the next year also, we face the same thing.
All right. My response to that condition would be that, one, it should be clear to everybody that the most sustainable approach to managing or mitigating disaster is citizens' compliance with government policy.
Yes.
We know that it is popularly argued in political circles, in political science, that the virtues of a state depends on the virtues of our citizenry.
Exactly.
It is the fundamental responsibility of any government to promulgate into policies what is desirable for sustainable development to occur. Yet it is the responsibility of the individual citizens to understand this and know that no government has enough police to police all government activities and policies.
Yeah.
Once this is understood, we shall have a sustainable answer to the problem. The second one is that we all know that before it becomes the responsibility of government to protect one's life and one's family's life, it is the self, the person himself, who has greater responsibility. For example, suicide is prohibited by law. Suicide is prohibited by law.
Yes.
Those who attempt to do suicide are prosecuted by the state. But yet, those who have already committed suicide, government cannot do anything about that. If there is anything they can do, it would be very little.
And what I want to add there is, on the part of the government, in as much as we want to accept the responsibility that as a leader and a responsible president, leadership for that matter, if you look at most of the roads here today, just like URR, about some 3 years ago, the condition of those roads that could have at least increased the risk of life when it rains has been improved excellently. All these things are part of way to mitigate the effect of floods and other things, and to make our lives much better. Even Banjul itself, it's unfortunate that we are experiencing these kind of scenarios here, but we said the impact of the rain was much more than expected.
Yeah, and what happened in Banjul is also been related to the ongoing works there, rehabilitation works in the city, and the contractor has been blamed in some contexts by so many people that, you know, the government is not, saying anything about the works that are going. And what will you say to that?
I do not want to sit here to be defensive, but for now, there is no technical backing to that claim. We understand that when people are desperate, a lot will be said, and we sympathize with them. That is even more of the reason why we are here to touch base with them, to tell them that government is not trying to take the defensive side, but to tell them that this is an unfortunate situation, and we want to join hands, we join expertise, we join the same spirit to make sure that at least we avert and correct it.
Thank you. At this juncture, before we proceed, we would just introduce a video to look at, of course, some of the areas that have been flooded. Of course, the minister was just highlighting about some of the illegal, houses or homes that have been constructed in some of the areas that have somehow, resulted to the heavy flooding in some areas. So let's look at this video and see how some of the areas that are affected, just like in Banjul, of course, Ibo town, and in Nema, for example, in some areas, and before we continue the discussion. All right, thank you very much to our technical team there for that video report. This was how some of the areas, especially Banjul, the first images saw the capital city. You can see how the environment, virtually all areas were flooded and waterlogged. Bring us up to speed. I was earlier mentioning about the president outing yesterday. What has been done so far recently in the capital to make sure that the situation has been brought under control?
I wasn't in Banjul yesterday.
Yeah. But do you know anything that happened as to some of the measures that were?
Yes, some of the measures that were done is that government and the president himself had provided pumping machines. Okay. The president purchased up to 20 pumping machines that could be deployed to the flooded areas in order to pump and relieve families, households from the distressful conditions in which they are. Yeah. Alongside that, technically it had been advised that some blockage be formed where officers in the security had been putting sand in order to block some areas so as to make the pump effective. All right? It happens that in some areas, for example, in Philippines, Metro Manila, in the outskirts of Manila, they also experience floods. Floods that will take meters height. But one thing that they also do is that some settlements are recognized as temporary settlements during the dry season. And they have sophisticated equipment so that when the floods are about to approach, meteorological reports will show them and they will start evacuating people from one region, from one part to the other. These are the magnitude that it has taken in Banjul of recent this year. Can be recalled to have happened, not to happen many, many years ago. So that anything that happens, undesirable as it may be, can also serve as a learning point that would also adequately inform policymakers. But for now, one intervention that is being done is the pumping and the blocking.
All right.
You can...
You want to buttress? Okay, yes.
Local language. That is to say, if you look at Banjul,
Yes.
His Excellency the President is very particular about Banjul. Not because Banjul is the only place that we have in the Gambia, but because it is our city. That is how important it is. If you compare Banjul in the past 3 years and Banjul today is different. And the entire objective is to make sure that Banjul is being designed according to the standard of a city.
Apparently, what we have seen.
Let me just come there.
Yeah.
The intention is, the objective is to make sure that at least we reduce or mitigate issues of floods in Banjul. But of course, when work happens, it has to be tested. And now, what has happened now is testing the quality of the work. And this we have to go to the drawing board to look at whether actually it is what people are saying is the drainage or is the work, or it is naturally the heavy flow of water. So all these things will be proven in the long run. But for a short term, what we're doing now is to evacuate people to a much more suitable site where they can have a better breathing place whilst we work on trying to empty the water from the Banjul. But if you look at it, before the sea itself has increased its heights, we are having a rise in the sea level. And that is all because of the climate change.
Yeah.
The pumping machine that was there, it was pumping less than 2 million liters per hour. But just 3 days back, the President has instructed that a new pumping machine is installed, which is of a capacity of more than 2 million liters per hour. And as I'm talking to you now, the second pump is also working, pumping more than 2 million liters per hour.
So we have two pumps apparently
two
without
pumps
going.
working efficiently and effectively
at this point.
At this moment. And not only that, from the Honorable Minister, my colleague Minister, these are things that you don't have to, maybe people when they are in issues of such nature, they want the results to be immediate. But it cannot happen like that. What we are trying to do is that some people are suggesting that we bring in pumping machine. Government is also had the same thinking, to bring in small pumping machines and pump out the water out of people's compound. But the entire
but talking
city,
about those some pumping machines, that could have been done at the
no, it wasn't going to be resource oriented. You pump water and it comes back to the same, because where the water is going to be emptied is already full. You have to reduce the level first, then you now come and see how best you can empty the compound. That is why we came up with the sandbags. We've bought 2,000 bags, and the soldiers were busy filling this bag this morning, so that at least now that the water level is confirmed going down. As of yesterday, it went down to about more than 7 centimeters. Just the rain that came yesterday also increased it also. But after that, now we're confirming that even some of the cities now are going down. So now you can block this some of the compounds and flush back the water out. That is going to give you a lasting result, rather than the initial one that people want us to come and just pump. You pump from one compound, it comes back again from the city, from the streets.
Now talking about climate change, as the minister, of course, that's your line ministry, I mean, and also environment. Now, what we have witnessed this year, does this mean now your ministry or has a big task at hand to make sure the Gambians understand the effects of climate change in trying to mitigate some of the causes of damages that are happening, I mean, cutting down of trees, as you mentioned earlier, and some other factors also?
We are already on top of that. As you may know, a few months ago, we've just banned the timber trading, both export, re-export, and even cutting down some indigenous trees that are in our own, in the Gambia itself. This is all geared towards improving our environment, and advocacy is also going on. To measure, it's not only about trees, it's even about our own selves. People are dumping indiscriminately. Even we went to Ibo Town with the president, honestly, what we are seeing, some of them are man-made. As small as we have those gutters, if the gutters were functioning as efficiently as they are, actually the number of flood or the magnitude of the flood would not have been this much. Because people just want to sit down just next to your door, you dump in garbage there, and you want government to come and clean it. It cannot happen like that. It's as if you are digging a hole, somebody is busy backfilling the hole again. When are you going to finish digging the hole? We have to take responsibilities as human beings. And coming to that also, from my colleague minister, I think some people enjoy, please don't quote me wrong, some people enjoy being victim of disasters. I don't know why. Because if you look at it, when I was a governor.
Seriously?
Yes, when I was a governor. When we go around for our pre-assessment before the rainy season, you'll see some houses, you will see some old tires put on top of the roof, some bricks put on top of the roofs. My friend, it will take you less than $1,000 to at least buy a new corrugate and one listen, and then a nail and then fix it.
Yeah, well, probably it's the conditions, or they might
some
not
of those
the
people,
affordability might not be there.
Honestly, with due respect, $200 is a packet of nail is less than $50. Some of them, when you went to assess them, you sit down and you look at it, they can afford far more than that. Those are the ones you see them going into naming ceremony that will cost them huge amount of money. Let us be spending. I'm not trying to say that that is your personal life. But again, if you are blaming government for not meeting up their responsibilities, what is your responsibility as a citizen to your very self? As I am telling you now, my house is flooded. But nobody has gone there to visit. Not the media, not the government. Or should I start and saying because government didn't come, I shouldn't clean my house? I shouldn't make sure that at least I pocket the water. Since in the morning we are busy trying to look at backfilling here and there, at least to protect my house. It's my house. I build it and then I choose to settle there. So I have to take the responsibility at my own level. What is to the magnitude of the government? Government will come to that way. But then yet still, I want to make it clear. We are not trying to shy away from our responsibility as a government. This is why the president is going almost every day. Yesterday he was in Banjul. Today, as I am talking to you, maybe he is still there. I was told that he was there when we were having this program. So this shows that, and we are all diverted to Banjul. Let me tell you, let me make this clear. Basay is affected.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lula is affected.
Yes.
A lot of places are affected, and we are intervening in all these sites simultaneously.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are focusing in Banjul because, like you said earlier, Banjul is the capital, and of course, we know within the greater Banjul area, and like you said, Basay, other parts of the country equally are affected. So that's a big, equally a concern, I have to say. Now, talking about the president, because yesterday he was there, and you said apparently, currently he is there in Banjul in some of the areas, especially where the pumps are being installed to pump out the waters. Now, let's hear from the president what he had to say yesterday when he was out there to visit for himself and see how the operation was ongoing.
Until around 12 o'clock at night with my chief of intelligence security, with the vice president, because it is an area that is the responsibility of the vice president. Disaster management is under the vice president, so he's the one coordinating, he's the one managing, but in consultation with me as president. Despite I'm on holidays, but definitely if my people are in such a situation, I must be involved, I must be part of it. So that's why I'm encouraging the whole team. Let us stop the blame game. Let's all work together in solidarity to make sure that we solve the problem. But I'm sure that we will solve the problem because the water is coming down. There is no problem without a solution. But the most important one is solidarity. Let us come together so that we solve the problem. We have invested a lot in Banjul. We don't want such things to happen in Banjul. But this is climate change. Climate change is becoming a big problem. But it's a wake-up call for all of us to make sure that we increase the capacity so that we can evacuate the water quickly as possible. I came to see the workers here. They are installing other machines to make sure that they increase the capacity so that we can empty the water from Tobacco as soon as possible. It is round the clock. We will not stop. We will work until when we solve the problem. Definitely. And we want a lasting solution. A solution that definitely for the future we will not have problems. It's an emergency, and I think it's happening all over the world, in Senegal, in Chad, in America, other places that are more developed than the Gambia. So Gambia cannot be an exception. This is something that we don't expect. It's unexpected, definitely, but we are doing everything possible with the entire team, that is the ministers, the vice president, chief of staff, Hadim, the contractor, and other people, and the young people from Tobacco who form an association to start pumping the water with these small machines. But the solidarity is the intention that is more important than everything. So on that note, we thank everybody, we thank the association, we thank Hadim, we thank the vice president and the team, the security forces, everybody. Let's continue. It's round the clock. Let's work until we solve the problem, and we will solve it, inshallah. We thank the mayoress also. She's also involved, and she's working with us. I think that's the most important thing. This country is our country. We have nowhere else to go. It's only Gambia. Even State House, we have some emergency issues that we need to taking around because of the water. But despite all that, the most important thing is the people, especially the grassroots. They are my people. Those are the people who voted for me. Those are the people who put me in power. So the grassroots people are very, very important. That's why since I came to power, I invest a lot of money in Banjul. I think I'm in record. I'm the president that has invested more in Banjul than any other president, including Sadoro Jawara, who was here 30 years. Janne, who was here for 22 years. But within my 5 years, what I have invested in Banjul is a lot. So I will not sit down and see that waste. I will make sure I consolidate that. I will make sure I improve it. I make sure that I secure it. Their security is my responsibility. Thank you. Yes, now the youths came together and they purchased few machines. What they needed machines that are bigger, that have a bigger capacity. I donated about 20 machines, 20 units. 20 units so that they can increase their capacity. It can help them also. So make sure they support the grassroots people, the people who are affected directly.
Words of President Barrow there, and I know both of you probably would want to comment on that, because the president is more or less saying even State House is not is also affected in this case. So I know this will further goes to say that basically everyone, either directly or indirectly, was affected. So he's saying that there's no need for blame game. We have to come together as a country to make sure that we overcome this predicament that we face as a country. Would you want to comment on that quickly before we move on?
Maybe we'll have to change.
Of course, we would want to.
Yes, okay, then let me just do this. I think what he said is just adding more to what we have just said. This country belongs to all of us. Despite the fact that we have different thinking and different political ambitions, but when it comes to citizens of this Gambia, we are all the same. A lot has been done in Banjul. I said this before.
Yeah, probably. Others might say the president is beating his chest again and say that he has done something that no other president has done so far. That is just telling you the intention and the main objective is to make sure that at least Banjul is up to standard when it comes to calling itself a city. So, and then you will not call that city with all that investment and then just want it to be blown off, swept off by water. That's not the objective. That's why we're doing all our best to make sure that at least this solution, we have a solution, a lasting solution as quickly as possible. Okay. All right, thank you very much. I know the Honorable Minister here from Formation, of course, would also want to comment on that. But at this juncture, I would just allow us now to move on or shift into the local languages. Mandinka and Wolof to be precise, of course. Su ko defee dégg ngeen kàddu yu fi jota jib bu of course waxtaan bi doore ak léegi ñu fàttali rek ne yéen a ngi seetaan Africa TV any hour bi nga xamante ne Monday bu nekk wala altine bu nekk si waxtu bi jotee da ngeen di mun a seetaan programme bi la waaye nag tey dañu xala soppi doxalin dalal fi ñaari state ministers ay kilifa ci nguur gi ñu war a waxtaan ak Gambien si pour ñu wax Gambien si fal nguur gi toll ci jafe-jafe yi nga xamante ne taw bu réy bi indi na ko ci biir réew mi te gis ngeen ne li nga xamante ne mooy luñ ci wax ak lu président bi ci boppam wax ci taxawaay bi nga xamante ne am na ko su ko defee xam naa ne dina door ak of course Minister of Information moom mu ñëw wax ñu ci li nga xamante ne mooy ci response bi xam naa ñu bëri nañ ci bëgg a xam li xew na ba pare te wax nga ci English of course naka la nguur gi gisee jafe-jafe ak yan jéego ngeen ci def waaye ci response bi taxaw nit ñi surtout ci wàllu ndimbal dund bi am na ñi nga xamante ne seen lépp dafa yàqu ci loolu tey boo ñu doon jox update fan la nguur gi toll ci foofu xamoon nañ ne NDMA gën nañ def assessment waaye assessment boobu ndax jeex na ak response bi kañ la nit ñi commencé war a di jot li nga xamante ne mooy ndimbal bu mu war a jot ci jógee ko ci nguur gi direct la.
jërëjëf Mr. Kanté. comme ni ma ko waxee woon.
waaw.
foog naa bu ñëwee into the local language.
waaw.
man mun naa koo def ci soose.
waaw ok moom.
man jëm ko ci olof.
very good. waaw loolu kay yëpp baax na ok.
Today, not they can do a media, the television of today can sign. The Minister Control, Honorable Manjati, or John Manja, And then, of course, program moderator Mr. Kante.
ok nga baal ma gars yi ñëw man naa ñëwaat ci yow léegi nga continuer ci soose bi in a moment ma jégalu ci loolu but just ma shift over to the honorable minister Manja moom mu ñëw of course tënk ci wolof bi dem su ko defee yow kon laajte bi benn rek lay doon ci response bi mooy ndimbal bi parce que tamit dafay baax nit ñi xam bu jafe-jafe amee gannaaw nguur gi taxaw leen te wax ngeen ne understand ngeen yaa ngi masaw nit ñi waaye ci li nga xamante ne moom mooy ci dimbale nit ñi surtout ci dund ak selta mooy fu ñëwee dëkkuwaay fan la ci nguur gi toll xëy na ci jamono buñ nekk ni
jërëjëf pour may waxtu wàllaam maa ngi gërëm ñëpp di sant yàlla gannaaw bum ñu mayee ñu dugg ci loo xam ne maanaam suñ ne taw moom ñëpp a ko soxla te waaye taw bu mel nga maam yi naan na taw mu dal ak jàmma waaye boo gisee ñuy ñaan loolu xam ne am na taw yoo xam ne du dalee tamit dina am yeneen loraange yu ci nekk di massa ñëpp ñi nga xam ne am nañ ci loraange di ci boole suma boss ak tamit président bi sa boppam sax parce que office am bi sa boppam sax man maa fa dem kenn waxoon ma maa fa dem suma tànka dugga si biir ndox ma ne ay moyen lii la ñu ne ma fii sax ndox bi daf doon bala si suuf ma ne comme que su fekkee moom fii moom bàyyi ko gannaaw kon nga xam ne yàlla moom ñëw na di ko sant rek di ko gërëm léegi li may wax mooy président bi li xewee gannaaw wax nañ si angale jóg na fi ñëpp gis nañ ko dem na nemmeeku vice président moom moo ko njëkk a jiitu dem gis nit ñi si liñ nekk président bi mu ñu loolu doyut ko parce que dëgg la wax nañ ko te waaye bu gën a mun tam mu dem gis ak ñi nga xam ne ñu ngi ci tolof bii nii mu woon lañ ne mook ñoom a ko bokk te nag wax digg ne yàlla mu ngeeg ñoom guddeeg bëccëg ñaanam ak lim ci mën a rek pour gis mu taxaw si taxawaayam gannaaw moom la yàlla dénk réew mi loolu taxut ba tey ñëpp a ko gis mu ngi dem Banjul di dem ko ñu waaye nag mu ngi jokkoog tamit ak ñi nga xam ñun ñooy ministre yi di ñu wax ne ni ñu war a def ak saa yu nekk ñu ngi koy wax suñ toll joxe na instruction bi ne nañ jënd maalo jënd lañ maalo lu dem ba daanaka about almost 2000 bags 107,000 plus bags jënd nañ ko maalo sukur ak diwlin pour jox ko ñi nga xam ne ñoom ñoo ñàkk sañuy dunda pour dampuwaay lu ñoo lekk ci ab diir bu ndaw balaa ñoo mën a am sañ bopp.
ok léegi naa la dog nga baal ma tuuti because dañu am latest images yu Banjul ku ne yaa ngi ko gis noonu Saint Augustine fi ñi nga xamante ne ñu ngi yoon ci dox bi ñu génnee leen pour ñu am fu ñu dëkk in the meantime ndax waxtaan bi tamit dafay baax léegi tamit ñu woon nit ñi situation bi fan la toll ak naka la mel su ko defee mun nañoo seetaan loolu tamit kon yéen a nga gis images yi loolu images yi nga xamante ne président bi démb demoon na seetaan wala fekk ji ci li nga xamante ne moom mooy ci nit ñi lii tey la woon sànq nii rek le président bi dem foofu fekk ji li nga xamante ne mooy nit ñi gis ngeen ñi ci school bi lañ nekk ànd ci ak Red Cross ak yenn stakeholder yi nga xamante ne ñoom ñëpp dañ génn si pour taxaw ñi nga xamante ne ñu ngi ci jafe-jafe right now gis ngeen président bi mu ngi noonu lii sànq nii ci ngoon sile foofu ci Banjul Minister of Health ci wàllu wér-gu-yaram moom tamit moom ngeen di gis noonu mu feelu président bi contracteur bi tamit dégg nañu moom tamit mu ngi ci grant bi ñoom ñëpp ñu ngi taxaw pour def assessment xam tamit dem fekki nit ñi nga xamante ne jógee ne seen ay kër ñu ngi ci ay schools ñeneen ñu ngi ci ay béréb bi nga xamante ne du seen ay kër waaye jafe-jafe bi ak ndox bi moo leen fa génnee ci fuñ dekkoon loolu ay images yi nga xamante ne dañ leen ko bëgg a wonale balaa ministre li nga xamante ne moom mooy situation bi waaw.
foofu laa njëkkee woon gannaaw loolu noonu sax ñu ngi def matuwaay pour gis na ndox bi daal mu génn ci biir Banjul parce que boobu moo gën a am solo dëgg la
jël na holiday wala leave
axakañ ministre bu nekkee Mankamakunda sax xelam ma ngi fi xalaatam parce que mu ngi jokkoog ñi nga xam ne ñoo ko fa taxawal parce que saa yu nekk mu ngi déglu mu ñoo laajte fuñ toll te mu ñoo nem te mu ñoo wax lan lañ war a def te mu ngi pousse ni mu ko war a poussé gis nga fu mu nekk ni pompe bi ñuy pompe suñu la waxee fu mu jógee ak ni mu ñëwee di nga xam ne kon government bi ñu ngay def sañ taxawaay dëgg la fu mu nekk ni gis nañ ne ñëpp a ngi taxaw te ñu ngi sant maire bi bu baax a baax ñu ngi sant ak teamam bi saa yu ma demee ci pompe station bi dama fa dee gis tamit National Assembly member bi tamit dama fa dee gis maire dama dégg maire bi xibaaram ne ñëwoon na fa wala mu ngi ñëw
su lan ngay wax tamit si gos tudda nga maire bi te gis naa moom tamit def bu mu ñibbisee dafa tukki woon mu ngi dem ci famille si affecté waaye ñu bëri ñu ngi jàpp ne collaboration bu waroon am diggante maire bi wala council bi ak government bi ci time rehabilitation bi moom moo amul xëj na moo tax sax na jafe-jafe yi tamit mel ni foofu ci Banjul
man de gisoo ma ko noonu dama gis na daal ma ku nekk da nga am bunta boo jàppee sa bunta ma jàppa sama bunta rek yëpp dina mat parce que dafa mel
ni boolewul njaatige bi ci liggéey bi tamit est-ce que loolu tamit
njaatige mu ngi si parce que da nga ko gis ak njaatige mu ngi si parce que
léegi kay bu problème balaa fii lañ doon wax ci ndorte bi from the word go ñu jàpp ne def si waroon a bokk ànd ak nguur gi liggéey capital parce que because pour ñëpp la du pour nguur wala pour council pour Gambien si la
waaw comme li ma wax rek bëgguñoo dem naan kii def na nii kii def na naka waaye dafa nekk ne nguur am na nu moo liggéeyee te tam ku nekk da nga am sa taxawaay da nga am sa place lépp lu nguur def la xamal ne teg nañ ko ci yoon ma loolu moom lu ma leer la parce que nguur dafa am mbootaay goo xam ne dafa am kàddu am tànka jéego yoo xam ne moom la mooy def kansul tam ñoom dañu am sañ taxawaay kansul nga def yu bëree bëri yoo xam ne nguur gi amu ci loxo te laajte woon naka lañ koy defee parce que xam nañ ne lii moo sañ liggéey kon nguur tam bu jógee ne moom tam lii mooy taxawaam te lii la moo def mu def ko kenn warta jàmmañ lu da waxut ma ko lu tàgguwuma waaye ku mel ni kansul bu mu ñëwee def li mu war a def te tàgguwul nguur kon nguur boo jógee lii def ko war def moom tam mu def ko kañ defal fii ma sotti fii rek mu nekk benn rek loolu rek la waaye man pour man moom ku nekk li nga war a def nañ ko def rek jarul ne tàggu nga ma tàggule ma nañ ko def rek su ko defee ma def ma bos rek tàggu nga ma tàggule ma rek dañ am
léegi général yi balaa ma ñëw ci honorable ministre rek wax ñëw ci wàllu ndimbal bi ma doon wax sànq balaa ma la doon dog mooy dimbali nit ñi si ñi nga xamante ne daanaka kon ni nga gisee images ni président bi dem na Banjul waaye nekkul Banjul rek ñu am ay jafe-jafe Greater Banjul bi Kombo gi ak Brikama ak yeneen side West Coast yëpp am na ñi nga xamante ne dekkuñ seen ay kër lu ñuy dundee sax problème la ci te ñu ngi xaar ñu ngi wax ne NDMA assessment waaye léegi ëpp na week yëf yi fan la tullu ndax am na ñi nga xamante ne commencé nañu receive wala jot ay ndimbal surtout wàllu lekk bi ak wér-gu-yaram gis nañ ministre of health moom tamit mu ngi ci ground bi
ñu ngi coordonné dafa nekk loo xam nga bu dalee foog nga def proper assessment bala nga am ñoo xam ne jox leen ñoo xam ne waluñ ko te yellewuñ ko dëgg la loo xam ne dara du mut waaye loo xam ne maanaam bëriwut te kii nii mu ngi am fukki doom te mu yàqule néegam bi yëpp kii nii mu ngi am benn doom te ba tey mu ngi nekk si néegam bi soo leen bëggee boole yëpp si benn gox rek ne kii jëlal lii ko dafa mel ne ba léegi am na loo manqué foog ñu def assessment su ko defee ñu mën a jox ku nekk ak xam ni nga ko war a amee ak tam buñ si boole ñoo xam ne waruñoo am wala ñu génne si ñoo xam ne ñoom dañ waroon a am moo tax ñu ngi bàyyi suñu xel dëgg la ndimbal moom bu demee ba ñi nga xam ne nit kaa ngi soxla dimbal bi boo ko ne ko lekka nga ne kaay raxasu dafa yàgg ci moom waaye li ma bëgg a wax rek mooy du pour ne lekka rek la parce que li gën a am solo si fii sax mooy lu ñoo génnee ndox bi mu bàyyi fi ñu dëkk ndax ñu mooy delluwaat fu ñu dëkkoon lu tam lu am solo te nit ñi ngi koy bàyyi gannaaw boo demee léegi jaabang fii nii ñaari moto fa moto yu mag a mag yi nga xam ñoom ñoo war a gas pour génnee ndox bi fu mu war a dem beneen bi bu mu demee dafa duta ñu yóbbuwaat beneen ñaareel bi moto bi demee mu duta léegi ñu ngi seet yeneen jéego parce que moto yi dañ seer du ñëpp a ko fi am Gambia wala su fekkee ne amul Gambia sax am nañu ko am sax li nga laajte pour nga jox ko dafa seer foo nga négocier te bu fekkee mais bi ñoom tamit ñu ci beneen liggéey boo demee yoon tamit dem nañ defar nañ yoon bi nit ñaa ngi dem ba ci tamit noonu dafa mel ni daal ñu ngi laal fu nekk daal moom
waaw dafa mel ni yàqu-yàqu yi moo tax léegi war naa ñëw ci honorable minister in the other end here pour moom tamit mu ñëw ci kàllaama Mandinka mu élaborate ci response bi ak yu mel noonu but naa bëgg nga you include health matters in this case because in most cases soo seetee yeneen réew yi disaster of this magnitude bu xewee health complications def cee bokka so in this case of course the minister of health is on the ground but yan modalities la nguur gi jël pour put you know li nga xamante ne mooy mitigate tamit health complications because yeneen feebar yu mel ni comme choléra because ndox bi dafay jaxasoo nit ñi mun na am ñu feebar ci foofu tamit bëgg naa nga laal loolu
ok a baraka baake Mr Kante alan daalo mbe juɓerlal be tentulan be jayila moɓe dawoɗa Gambia ni Gambia e banta lafta min seneyande la walem nteni honorable minister of environment nata janne pour ka jama kacañoya ke kalamutandi mansa kunda ɓe kato min be ke kan ñin alandala kuwo kono ka molu hakkilo bulandi ko alandalo ku merin nen jam society mo siyata ñamin ala development o keta ñamin ala alandala kuwolu ka ke wale ñama for example ni tata sate dolto tumandoy walta fole ko jele seletanam bungol kono bari sa foye ko bunjandangam dekin nangam wala katita molu fata police ol be molu fontinde kan expertol natay be molu sinkan so wakami itandi walen alandalo adama meta wo kono le mote wo kenola politique kuti mota kenola ku kotente pour ka mansa kunda darijo doyande mo fango be I fango bulu I hakkilo be fate kono ngalon ne ko alandalo mu kumerin nade na bota je jela selo tintengo kan wo fana ngaje janne bari nyin sulo le ya sabu because mo ila dimba ya be min kono wala ke sula dimbayal ganaw ibe wale kono jie keta sama keta bungol boyta dula dolu jie seleta tintingo kan vice president ni minister funtita president of ni minister funtita ngalon ne masibo warta nyaawo nyama badingol nin signol nin terol yen ni follow min soto je waden kamute fe yene kan ya fo en desan isi haketu ngamo nyinne boyte kan nyinne moya tungum foloti inamana kini bolo fon sambale ne kanale follow yeje ye sympathize wo ko kono itebe min kono so that is understand fana better ni be mako ero kele ba kele nyaadile president ni vice president ni minister ni sekunda be na de nyon ye o funtolu kele ye assessment okay saying keso londa mansakunda bira sita nin be nyol pour ka fero de dambe molu mako ele nyaadile domoro la ko wala nata o kono mol funtindi wo jie kono ye sambadula koten to ku duniya be kono aka ke nyami nin disasta keta ika aketa damin to ka molu naya jarata ika molu bondi woto ye sambadula kotenol dula kotenol min bo karambol dula kotenol min bokko alabatu bongolu dula kotenol min niya lonko ye loy kamale ika o central fana lo kamale dula dolto ni wo bota je domoro sinafuta molu la ika min fo jata kende ya fana mu kukuma baleti ba timo kono timo ka wol fana be sotole interdisciplinary committee ya ka ke walete nyebo discipline doto ali bengali kafu so that mo la jubero ka ke minte walem ila o fansun dinkira jata kende ya mol be min korosi kanjang wale waterborne diseases munesi soto no next bawo nyimfele jie nata abe selerin tinti ngoto ani nobe jahasi kan kurang osi soto no jele.
Okay, sign Kabirin disaster in Kera is more than 1 week. Okay, we have seen other humanitarian organizations just like Red Cross and some humanitarian organizations. Telfanang itata on the ground, but it be macro deacon. So in the level of the government, because we understand that MDM of course carry around the assessment care and all that, but Prukamol Mako also is more than a week sign. Mbembe level jamala pour aller mol ma ko sign because mel be batari mol
si Red Cross la intervention
yes
amanke ko yakele from the blue
yes
yalo nga fo ele biring alandalo boyta lungo minna asamo vice president tatale ani minister
but abuluken senator people say that the president also tata abuluken son while people
wo samo president fana tata sinindingo mol be min kafuta I benta biri benta nga kachake woleto Red Cross be wo konole mo be minno la fanna minna ye wo yitande ye wo fanna kumasi tumando man sakunda be minna sai fente je min parete ka woke sai yamo dosi soto ni Red Cross kon be domoro di la sai bari jumale soto min parete ki je pompi sai ka molu bondi je sai
okay
so ikaje fali priorities tala
okay
nimman sakunda be je pompi ka be je bloka abota je abe moli evacuate ka man sakunda be walen sula folote
okay
because ni be domoro fon di la mola batara abota wo blato ite domoro di no la wokon
okay
so ba wole nyanta kay man sakunda fana be wol
okay
bari man sakunda fana nyinne plan honorable minister itandila la ko aketa nyaawo nyama domoro nyantale ka futa nyulu because momin na domoro hana try mani botole sota tuta jie kono
absolutely
ay mingo min sota tuta jie kono domoro fana nyanta futa la nyulu la bari janni ka domoro futa ndala woddin kirato fosa bondi jele foloto
okay all right watola kamala we are almost very close to the end of the program sign time about so what is the lesson plan government ye money karan in disaster menketa because what is happen is even the Department of Water Resources or the if I'm right but generally people understand ko nyinam sama be jobe siala so in that case we also what happened people are really suffering and tinyaro ketale so government ye mun karanyin ko kono to moving forward so that by next year probably having disaster keta but atekela nyin sifal
Mr. Kante mansakunda e ku karanjele adu minkum mayata ka long follow wolem nyinti ko mansakunda kalafi kal technicien olu expert olu londitielo wo fannalu la engage
Okay.
so that na ya trabe laban na policy formulation nela manyen na wo preempt la saying
Okay.
yamoy because ning a preempt asina it may become technically unfit yakwaje wo mu ku kilinne ku fulanjango ka jama dani mansakunda ka kibarolu min di molu lam fango tara nyato na kenya loto nka lamoy nka bunya nga lonko na nafale yalon climate change ngafo londi tieli ya itandile binte ko ozone layer be deplete kanyami the planet is becoming more and more warmer.
Okay.
Adun there will be high sea level rise. Comme minister Mimfo.
So
nim atra badie be selelale. What yalom badanda sinal be nyanta o miralale.
Okay. So government is thinking allied on that line as
Certainly
well.
I'm saying
Okay.
governments naturally would think on that line.
Okay.
But I'm saying we cannot preempt what government is going to come up with in as far as policy is concerned.
Okay.
Because that would be a way of preempting technical input.
Thank you very much.
Which may,
okay. No problem. Thank you, Honorable Minister. And finally, Honorable Manjang, on a final note, of course, we're talking about climate change, and of course, you'll come back to the Minister of Environment, Climate Change, and Natural Resources. So what will be your final message in assuring Gambians that government would continue to stand by them? But of course, your ministry also will further going to propagate the message of climate change, and so that Gambians would know how serious it is, or can take it more serious than probably as we are as a country. On a final note.
Thank you. I think just speaking from my colleague minister, I want to use this opportunity before I lay down this baton to thank the entire people of this country for coming together spiritually and showing the solidarity that this country needs at this moment. This is what Gambia is known for. We come together irrespective of our political position, irrespective of our individual interests. We come together to support when disaster strikes. And this is here that we are. I thank all the stakeholders from the head of this country, His Excellency, to the Vice President, Cabinet Ministers, other stakeholders and the councils, Red Cross, the list goes on.
The list goes on,
yes.
Absolutely.
Even the media, we all played our part.
Thank you.
As little as it is, we all did what we could. And I want us to continue doing more. The people that have been affected, they need us now. They don't want us to talk, they want us to act and then help them. That is what is important now. Just like what the President is doing, let's show the solidarity. Let's stop the blame game and support. Let us do as much as we could to go away from this. Then after, what are we going to do? That's the future. And the future is here. As said by the Honorable Minister, once again, we have to be responsive to what is coming when it comes to policy guidelines. And we don't want to wait people to enforce. Why are people are not enforcing this law? We don't want to see the law hunting us, taking us to jail, beating us before we comply. This is our own benefit. And now we're seeing it. For me, as far as I'm concerned, I think the first thing I will be doing is wherever I'm going to settle, I'll be mindful and I will make sure that even if they don't come, even if they don't come and ask me, those that respond, even if they don't come and assess my place, I will go and demand for it.
Thank you.
For them to come and assess the topography and also tell me how my house will be positioned, so that at least such cases I will, because it hurts me more than even the government.
Thank you.
Because I am in it together.
Yeah, sorry for that, by the way. Honorable Minister Rohit John Manjang is the Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources. And of course, also we have Honorable Lamin Kunjama, Minister of Information. They were here to talk to the Gambian people on the recent flooding that hit the country. Apparently, so many families and communities in different parts of the country were affected. And you had the update from both of them. And of course, we thank them also for coming and talking to the Gambian people through iAfrica TV. And with that, we will bring this discussion to an end. And of course, we will hopefully come back in another edition or in another program to keep talking, because apparently the situation is still very much serious. Some families are still affected, and we once again extend our sympathizers to them. Thank you very much for watching, wherever you might have been. Until we meet again, thank you very much and do have a pleasant night. Bye from us.